All right, are we all set then? Today we want to focus on Leibniz monads. Last time we introduced Leibniz rather briefly, pointing out that he saw conflicts emerging between the mechanistic science, which was shaping the philosophy of the 17th century, and the Christian religion, both in terms of its materialistic direction in people like Hobbes, and in terms of its determinism in people like Hobbes and Spinoza. And he didn't like Spinoza's naturalistic pantheist interpretation of mechanistic science. And so he tries to come to grips with that kind of science and religion conflict by working out an alternative metaphysical understanding that doesn't ignore the science of the day, but, shall we say, puts it in a limited role, a more of a phenomenal direction, the level of appearances, rather than in terms of telling us about the underlying reality. Now, the underlying reality, then, is that everything that exists ultimately consists of monads, which are indivisible units of force or energy. Indestructible, yes, because not being composites, they cannot be disintegrated and destroyed by any natural means. That is not to say that they are eternal, always were and always will be, inasmuch as their existence is being given to them by God. Now, we noted last time that these monads, these units of force, are analogous to each other in such a way as to compose this kind of hierarchy of being, where the supreme monad has perfect apperception and appetition. And monads lower on the hierarchy have lesser degrees of apperception and appetition. The term apperception is obviously an adaptation from our term perception, because he is willing to grant that some animals, with soul monads, may have sense perception, and even things which have no conscious awareness, at the bare monad level, seem to know their place within the overall picture, you see. This is the intelligible order manifested in things having their place and function. When you come to humans with spirit monads, they have not just sense consciousness, but self-consciousness, reflecting on their own consciousness, and therefore the capacity to interrelate their own ideas, to reason, actively, reason. And to that could be given the name apperception, where there is self-consciousness. But God has perfect apperception, awareness of everything, perfect self-understanding. So there are degrees of apperception, appetition, desire, yes, directed energy, in the sense that there is a natural function that is being exercised, actualized in degree. Here's where the final causation becomes evident, in the very nature of all monads, with natural drive, appetite, desire, inclination, disposition, those terms which were associated with final causation in the scholastics. So then we have these indestructible units of force, varying by infinitesimal degrees within this hierarchy of being. No gaps in the hierarchy. Every conceivable distinction is represented in this complete chain of being. And so Leibniz speaks of a principle of continuity or plenitude. Continuity, yes, there's no gaps, no discontinuity in the chain of being. Plenitude, yes, it's filled, there's no empty seats. Principle of plenitude. And of course that is simply the conception of the hierarchy of being which the scholastics had. That the whole creation, everything in its place, you see, together comprises the fullness of things that find their existence in relationship to God. So there is a principle of sufficient reason. There is reason for everything that exists within the whole hierarchy, and for every event that occurs within the whole hierarchy. Sufficient reason. And this is such an interwoven, choreographed whole that the principle of perfection, this kind of being, is good, you see. Now, essentially, those three principles could have been used to describe the hierarchy of being in Thomas Aquinas, you see. He would essentially agree. As I mentioned last time, what Leibniz is doing is trying to resurrect the scholastic conception of being, the scholastic metaphysic, closer, as we'll see, to Scotus than to Aquinas, and to ascribe to it the kind of goodness which, as in the medievals, manifests the perfection of God, his creation, manifesting his goodness. So you have that carryover, and what he's going to have to do is to find place within this arrangement, within this overall understanding for mechanistic science. This is the nature of ultimate reality, you see, and one of its manifestations is the kind of mechanistic function he's talking about. But we can't really get at that until we get down to talking about the distinction between minds and bodies, and how bodies behave and what constitutes bodies. It's there in the operation of bodies that are composed of many, many monads. Bodies are composites. It's in the operation of bodies as composite substances that you get the mechanistic operations of cause and effect going on. So then these monads as indestructible units of force, each one different in degree from every other one, so each has its own individual nature, its individual essence. Remember how the medievals struggled to explain in their theory of forms how come individuals differ from each other as they do. Until Scotus, Duns Scotus, introduced the conception of haikaitas. That is to say that in addition to the form of the species and the signate matter that is compounded with the form of the species, there is also a principle of individuality, of thisness, haikaiatas, so that God creates individuals with their own natures. Now, that's what Scotus said, and that's what Leibinz is picking up from Scotus. So that these individual essences are like, you see, the principle of haikaiatas in Scotus, but the individual essences are obviously alike in that they have common attributes, what the scholastics called the transcendental attributes of all being. And they had talked of those transcendental attributes, you remember, as unity, goodness, beauty, truth, you see. Well, what Leibniz is doing is doing the equivalent by talking about apperception and appetition. Apperception and appetition. That's to say, each has its own nature and therefore knows its place within the whole. Knows in quotes, depending on the degree of consciousness. Perception, rather. An appetition? Yes, in its functioning. It is acting out, acting in accordance with, actualizing the potency, the potential of its own essence, its own inner resources, its own nature. So then, these individual monads are understood by him to be windowless. Interesting metaphor that he uses. You see, in a windowless room, there is no contact with the outside. No cause-effect relationship to anything external. Everything inside the room is, as it were, hermetically sealed. It is self-contained, self-operating, by virtue of the resources stored within the room. So these monads, then, are, as it were, programmed in their own nature. So that the knowing which goes on by virtue of apperception is all innate ideas that come to our awareness, to our consciousness, if you like, our recollected. Because the monads are windowless. There's no external stimuli affecting the mind. And not only is the knowing that goes on innate, but the desires, the appetition, is not something that is response to external stimuli, but it's simply the expression of the inner potency, the inner need, the inner direction in which the spirit monad is set. And the same is true of all monads. So to say they're windowless means that there are no causal connections between monads, whether in relationship to thought or in relationship to overt activity. No causal connections. But then you have to go one step further and ask, well, then, how do they exist? What's their source of energy? And sometimes Leibniz uses the term creation and says God creates them. But in other places, he tries to be more descriptive and uses the term fulguration. He says they're continuously being fulgurated by God. Now, I bet you've never run across the term fulguration before. Nor did I when I first read Leibniz. But my Webster dictionary back then, and I assume it still does, says that fulguration has to do with generating energy. It's used, for instance, when you strike a match and it catches flame. You are fulgurating the heat, the light. You see. So it's the idea of that the energy, that their particular degree of force is constantly being generated and infused by God. God is the power source, giving existence. But in the act of giving existence to monads, he gives them the degree of force which gives them their individual existence of that nature. And so rather than the conception of creation, which was becoming apparent in the beginnings of deism, the view that God created and then things become self-existent and self-operative, God is continuously imparting existence. If you like, this again is the thing that the medievals said, Thomas Aquinas, which is why when Aquinas argues from the order of cause and effect in the cosmos to the first cause, he doesn't simply mean, in fact he doesn't particularly mean in that proof, the first in the whole series of causes, but rather a meta-cause that continually empowers the whole causal series, at whatever stage it is. You see. So God is the one who not only initiates existence, but who sustains existence by continuing to impart existence. And Leibniz is simply reiterating that within the conceptual scheme which he's developing. Fulguration by God. Somebody was asking since last time, isn't this, Stumpf seems to take it as if monads are, as it were, of the very being of God? Is this another kind of Spinozistic pantheism? You see? And I'd argue no. No. Because he doesn't claim that these are eternal. He claims that their force, their energy, their existence is given by God. Yes, continuously. But not that God is the totality of them. It's not a pantheism. So it's his attempt to explain the traditional Judeo-Christian conception of creation. Now, even though each of these monads is windowless, no causal connections, its existence is sustained by God. Its nature is what it is continuously because of God. But having that individual nature, knowing its place in the whole, Leibniz is able to say that each, by virtue of its own essence, mirrors the whole. Each is, as it were, a microcosm of the whole. You see? So if you understand your own individual nature in terms of these attributes of apperception and appetition, you have in that a glimpse of what the whole is like in terms of appetition and apperception. You see. So this metaphor of each knowing its place, he takes rather literally. the nature of the thing is such, the nature of the individual monad is such, that its own nature mirrors what it needs to be in order to fill this particular slot in the whole, as if it's a distinct, unique piece of a jigsaw puzzle that wouldn't fit anywhere else. And so in its own nature, there are implications for everything else. So each mirrors the whole. Now, let me pause there and see if you're digesting it. Do you get the picture of what he's saying? Ruth?
When you say there's no causal connection between monads, is that like Spinoza's, that everything comes from in the vertical relationship and there's no interaction across the extension of thought?
Yes, yes. With this exception that we caught last time, that where Spinoza has a double aspect theory, so that thought and extension are two sides of the same thing, Leibniz has different entities, so that that which thinks is spirit monad, that which is extended is a composite of bare monads, perhaps with soul monad, but they're different things. Yeah. So we speak of Leibniz as a parallelism, never meeting, which you can't really say of Spinoza, since they're really two sides of one thing. Right. But otherwise, apart from the conceptual scheme, the notion that there's no causal interaction is similar. John? No?
I'm a little confused about the final conclusion that each mirrors the whole. Trying to go back to your
Yeah.
conclusions 2 and 3, it seems that given the concept of thisness and a windowless thing, how could I have a perception that I would mirror the whole, that anything else?
Yeah. You see, and there I think you're probably playing on a conception of thisness, of individuality, which suggests that every individual is absolutely unique. Now, that modern conception simply is false. Now, it's false for Leibniz, and I think it's false anyway. We throw around the term unique so loosely. All snowflakes are unique, they say. Well, we imply that uniqueness means it has boundless value because it's unique. But not every snowflake has boundless value. It's not uniqueness that gives things value. But in any case, for Leibniz, the term unique would be stressing any lack of close similarity. You see, suppose you have an identical twin. Now, you're not completely identical. Leibniz talks about the identity of indiscernibles. If you have two things completely indiscernible, one from the other, then you don't have two things, you have one and the same. The identity of indiscernibles. But an individual is different from another, like an identical twin, in some infinitesimal way. And because the differences are infinitesimal, you see, you have an immediate understanding of those who are like you in certain ways. Now, the further you reach out, admittedly, there are not the immediate approximations, but there is still some analogy. So that in the hierarchy of being, if you were here, oops, I put you as a low-grade spirit. That wasn't my intention. But by virtue of being here, you have some sense of affinity for animals. Yeah, you find yourself sympathizing with dogs, especially your pet dog that you know. You see? And some people write papers and books about animal rights. You see? Animal rights. Interesting how far the analogy will take us. You see? And similarly, by virtue of spirit beings, humans have some understanding of what God must be like when we think of God as a person in whose image we are made. Okay? So simply by virtue of the analogy, you can say that I mirror in my nature something of the nature of animals, of God, of living things generally, of physical things. You see? And add to that the notion that since nothing else can fill the slot in the overall picture that I'm filling, you see, by virtue of the principle of plenitude, since nothing else can fill the slot, then there is in my nature an echo of the whole of being. You see? Yeah.
So the windowless idea is simply a causal one. And so as far as perception and language and all those things are concerned, you can interrelate because of analogy.
No, wait a minute. Perception, if there you mean sense perception, where we get external stimuli, no. If you mean conception, and incidentally, I notice those words are appearing mixed up in the outlines, Descartes as well, Hobbes as well. Perception is usually used to refer to sense perception. Sense perception. Whether it be the inner sense or the outer sense. Sense perception. Okay? That is to say, awareness of particulars and of particular qualities. Okay? Conception is used to refer to concepts, general concepts, perhaps abstract ideas. You see? So keep the two distinct. Incidentally, the term sensation is different again. Sensation is used to refer to the particular senses and what they deliver. A sensation of light, a sensation of heat,